Welcome back to another episode of Baxter's Buzz. I am your host, Baxter E. Hall. Welcome to my brain. Welcome to my frequency. Enter at your own risk. Today I have company with me. A good friend of mine, she is the Senior Director of Training and Development at Kelly Connect, Jennifer Sutherland. Hello, Jen. How are you?
Hi, Max. How are you?
Good, good. I'm so happy we finally get a chance to talk on camera because
Right.
yeah, you know, we've tried to schedule these a couple of different times, and I just obviously have always been so impressed with you, and I think that folks will be able to glean a lot from your knowledge and wisdom. So let's just jump into it.
Sounds good. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yeah. So listen, we really started to talk around like leadership, and I'll just say Jen was I reported to Jen, it feels like a million years ago. I don't know what that says about either of us, but and then when I've been in leadership
Yeah.
roles, I've come to you, right, to kind of get some jewels and some direction as far as how you've led your team. So if we want to start there, tell me how you view leadership and like talk about your style a bit and where did it come from?
So I have always somehow managed to be in leadership positions, even when it was like unofficially. So even if I think back to grade school, I was captain of the cheerleading squad. When I was in high school, I was on the board for everything. I created a nonprofit when I was in high school because I went to an
Wow.
event and I thought it was a really cool event and I wanted to do something for this population in El Salvador. So I started just a bake sale at my high school to donate money to this charity that would go to this community so that they can become self funded by helping them buy a sugarcane machine.
Ooh,
And
awesome.
so that was in high school. And so when you look through my yearbook, like you're going to see me everywhere. And then in college, was in the dorm council and then student government, and I was an RA and assistant hall director. And so it's sort of always been a part of me, whether I intended it that way or not. But I never had an actual leadership position. Like I wasn't paid to be a leader. I guess I was as an RA, but in a professional setting until I worked at New Horizons was my
Mm,
first time doing that. It was my first time being a manager of other people officially. And by that point, I sort of had already evolved in my own personality and my own professional style. And so my leadership just sort of followed along with that. But I think my leadership style is I really enjoy managing the whole person, right? Performance is one thing, but behavior comes from somewhere, and people
yeah.
get motivated by something, and it's different. So, getting to understand who my team is and understanding them on a real level is always been really important to me. And so, like having regular one-on-ones and communication is just so critical, and something I'm fiercely protective of even to this day, that I need to make sure that my team hears from me and that I hear from them on a regular basis, and I protect that. So like my leadership style has definitely evolved. I'm now a leader of other leaders, which is the first time I'd been doing this for, it's been about 4 years now, but it's even different at that level because I'm now no longer leading frontline employees, like the immediate person doing the job.
Yeah.
And so my leadership style has already sort of evolved from that. And now another thing that's different is I am managing people who are working remote full time,
Mm,
which to me also kind of requires a different management style. So it's my leadership and management, it's always sort of evolved. But I think it stems from just who I am as a person, which is really somebody who just wants to help other people be successful, is really where my leadership direction comes from and my own motivation to help others. And then it sort of evolves from there.
yeah, I think as I'm listening to you, and I think I benefited from it as well, like being in these leadership roles unofficially. But sometimes you can start out in leadership like too early, and then you're like learning to be a manager, but not necessarily a leader, right? And you have these responsibilities, and you feel like, hey, this is the way things are supposed to go. But that's only because like I feel like I've had the fortune of really good leaders and really like poor leaders, right? And so when I was finally given the opportunity to lead a sales team, I felt much more equipped because I had the gamut. I had some really good ones that I was like, I love the things that they do. I had poor ones where I was like, I don't like much of anything that they do, right? So I was able to bring those experiences with me before kind of leading my own team. And it's, it's a difference between managing and leading, right? I mean, uh, you manage sort of resources, right? You kind of manage, PTO, stuff like that, right? But you really want to lead people, right? And allow them to sort of, um, give them as much, empower them as much as you can.
Yep.
Um, the mentoring piece, do you feel like you can properly mentor folks that sort of are in your, like, that report to you, or do you see benefits in getting mentors outside of your, like, if even if it's still in the same company, outside of your departments or outside of your companies in general? Like, if I know it's different for everyone, but in your eyes, can you properly mentor someone that sort of reports to you or reports to someone that reports to you?
So yes and yes. I think that every person that you lead on your team, you should be mentoring along the way. That should be a part of your job as a leader to help mentor them. So it shouldn't be sort of a separate relationship, but every time you talk to them, it should be about their own personal development, what their challenges are, how you can help them evolve, giving them homework and tasks and difficult things to sort of push themselves, giving them stretch assignments. To me, all of that is a part of being a leader. It is
Yeah.
extremely important. But I do see a lot of value in seeking out mentors outside of your immediate sort of business unit or practice or division that doesn't know your day to day, because that's where you're going to get somebody that truly sees something from like a, out of its perspective. And the people that I've mentored that I didn't know their necessarily day to day job, I feel like I've been able to add something to their skill set because I'm seeing things differently than like if they ask somebody else in their sort of line of command, right? And
Yeah.
so it's important to get as many perspectives as possible
Yeah.
too, because otherwise you just create other people that look, sound, and act just like you. And so if you're seeking people that have different thoughts, that is just going to make you a stronger person if you have mentors that can give you those different perspectives.
Yeah, I was on a call yesterday actually with National African Americans and Insurance Association. Shout out to NAIA, the Detroit chapter, and we were talking about mentorship, and one of the gentlemen said, Many of my mentors over the years didn't even realize they were mentoring me,
Yep.
right?" So you connect and you glean things from people and you go, I really like how they handled that in this circumstance. Or they were talking to me about something that they did at their job or in their role. And you go, I like that, right? And you can kind of start to keep the things that you want and kind of toss out the rest, right? So, but as a mentor, I love the thought of you being invested in their personal development. It seems like a no-brainer, but many times in management roles, people are just trying to get jobs done.
Yep.
They're not really as invested in the personal development of the people. Where did you get that from, and that sort of that mindset?
So I was just having a conversation with somebody about this the other day that, it's interesting how some individuals are there was this concept a long time ago where managers used to be hired just to manage the work and manage outcomes, whether it was production, deliverables, whatever the case was. That was a long time ago. At this point, I don't know anybody whose job is just to manage other people's work. We all still have our own stuff we have to do. And even when I was a sales manager, I didn't have numbers directly, but I had other things that I was working on to help other people make their numbers
Yeah.
and pulling reports and doing things. And so it's interesting to me that this concept of a manager thinking that all their job is to manage somebody else's performance or outcome, that is so outdated to me. And I think that we just need to completely get rid of that concept, because a leader directly involved in the phases to help make that employee even better. And not everybody wants to move up. Not everybody wants to be a leader. Not everybody wants that next promotion. So you're not necessarily managing them or helping them develop to do that. But what is their goals? Maybe I had an employee who was perfectly content in her job for many, many, many years. But I started asking questions and asking her, like, what else are you interested in? I'm glad you love your job and I'm glad you're interested in this. What else do you do? And on her own time, she started creating websites, and it was just something that interested her. And so she was debating, maybe starting a company, making websites for people. And I said, there's things that we can incorporate into your job here to help you learn some of those skills and help you practice that. And it's not that I want you to leave and go become a web developer. If you want to, I will help you do that. But you can also embody some of those things in your own skills and your own interest. And to me, I don't know where it evolved. And I love that you asked that. And maybe someday I'll have some sort of epiphany that'll tell me. But I just have a passion for helping other people develop skills and be successful. And I don't know where that comes from. I'm not sure why or how, but I get a ridiculous amount of happiness from when people call me and tell me they have a new job, that they have, they closed their first deal or their biggest deal, or, that they just got offered a stretch assignment that's going to give them some really cool opportunities. To me, that is what I evolved to do. And I seek for all of my team. And it's hard, Bax, because I now have about 180 people that report up through me. I can't talk to all of them on a regular basis. I do skip levels. And in fact, I'm doing skip levels with like trainers and team leads that I am like 4 levels away from. So I can have those conversations because I still want to create that vision and lead from my role so that everybody on the team is trying to have those same conversations and build that excitement about professional and personal development.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because this is something that I struggled with. I started to try to get my head around, and I never quite solved the case, especially in a sales role, right? It's like sell. We have goals, we have numbers, right? How do you handle the person that doesn't want to work their tails off? They just want to come in, they want to work hard, but they don't want to do anything more. They're not coming in early. Don't ask them to come in early. Don't ask them to stay late. If there's opportunity like trade shows where don't ask them to travel. Like, it's like, hey, find someone else for that. But I'll give you what I got, 8 to 5 every day, right? Monday through Friday. When some things are performance based, when there's like a tangible sort of goal that people are shooting for, how do you handle those people that only want what they want, right? They're not looking to make all the money. They just want to make a little money, and they're completely satisfied with that.
So a couple of thoughts come to mind. And I have somebody in mind that you and I probably both know that was somebody who could put the highest numbers on the board. Fantastic at making their numbers as a sales rep, but was a horrible, horrible morale breaker in the office. And if I had a choice, that person would have been removed from the team and moved out, because I'm okay with having B-level players that are consistent and steady and show up and do their thing and make their numbers, whether it's sales or they're delivering classes and they're hitting their metrics. If those people are hard workers, they're good team players, and they have good personalities to work with, and they're bringing, the team atmosphere, and they're sort of like improving the team dynamics, I will take those employees all day long over somebody who is like excelling from a metrics perspective, but has the worst attitude or like has a negative effect on other people on the team. And so when I hire and when I work with my team to hire, we're hiring for somebody who has that eager, I want to learn attitude, somebody who is, hey, I'm going to be solid for you. I'm going to be consistent. You're never going to have to wonder where I'm at. I'm going to show up and I'm going to be here and I'm going to do things I need to do. Not every job, not every person has to be like an A player. Yes, that's like the ideal. You might want an A player. It was like on a sales team because you want to still make your numbers, but not everybody has to achieve to be the top, right?
Can you survive with a team full of B players?
No, not all B players. No, absolutely not. You still want a mix of players, and you hire the right group for that. And I will tell you, for some parts of my sales career, I was a B player. Like I was consistent, but I wouldn't go out there and pull my numbers from next month in order to make extra money for the company this month, just because my boss said I was supposed to, because I knew that was going to hurt my next month. And so there was times that I was that B player, and then there's times I was that A player. I was out there. I was traveling. I was doing this. I was, hitting the streets. And, I, at one point, my very first sales job, I had to hit, 100 cold calls every single week, physical business cold calls. And I did it and I enjoyed it and I made it a game. But you shouldn't dismiss the B players. Now, C players,
Yeah.
they're not going to be on my team for very long.
I think that you can survive with a team full of B players.
Yeah.
I think that the C players, you need the A players to make up for the C players.
Right. That's a good point.
You know what I mean? I feel like it's not just the number that you're contributing to. You're contributing to this culture, like you said, and it's so, so key. And those A players with the poor attitude may be turning those potential A players into C players.
Right.
Right.
Because and I agree.
The culture that they're contributing to.
Now, if I'm assuming that all A players have a bad attitude, then I agree with you 100%. I would take an all B team all day long. But there are A players that have great attitudes, who Absolutely. Are great team players, who move the culture of the team forward. And those A players are sometimes needed because they are going to spark interest. They help create the culture when new people kind of join in. Like those are typically the people who are raising their hand, like, yep, I can show so-and-so around. Yeah. Yep, I can, kind of show them the ropes. Yep, I will go on that first call with them or whatever the case is. Those A players can elevate the entire team when they're an A player if you're appreciating them appropriately and showing that recognition and showing and sort of creating that positive reinforcement for all the B players, for sure.
Yeah. And it's, you're measuring sales, but there's so many things. If someone could destroy or sort of chip away at the good culture that you are building, they can also build it, right, and contribute to it. So we need to figure out a way to recognize not just the numbers, but the other sort of intangibles that people are bringing to the table, right? It's tough when you have a number that you're trying to hit in the goal, right? As a leader.
It's so funny. I have to tell you, so it's so weird. My brain is switching so quickly to talking about like sales management. I haven't been a sales manager since 2010. Bax. It's been 11 years since I've been a sales manager, but I mean, I've been leading training teams for the past 11 years, but to me, like I immediately like switched because that was my first part of my career. So I'm like sales, numbers. Like I just immediately back into it. Forecasting, like where are we at with our pipeline?
Oh my gosh, yes. I am, I appreciate all roles, but in my individual contributor role, I know how much I care. I know what I'm willing to do, right? There's something to be said for for that, for not having to worry about how interested someone else is in their role, but knowing what I'm going to bring to the table, right? And I hope that leadership sort of recognizes that in me, right? Because
Yeah.
by the time my sales leadership role was ending, I was very happy about it. Um, changing the topic a bit.
Wait, hold on. Can I just say something real quick?
Sure.
So when I think about when I first met you and you were in sales and I was not your leader yet, I was a corporate trainer, and my impression of you, my first impression, and that first impression has never changed, is how eager you were to improve yourself and continue getting better, more than just about anybody else I've probably ever worked with. That you were consistently asking for feedback and asking for, how could I have done this differently, or how can I understand this better to make that work differently? And it just that's the kind of employee, Bax, that leaders seek and want on their team. Somebody who's going to ask those questions, but take it in and really try to continue improving themselves and wanting to be as best as they could possibly be. Like, I just want to point that out, because as you're talking about, leadership and sales and things, like, to me, that you're exactly the type of employee that's always the best for me to have on a team.
Well, that means a lot coming from you. I truly appreciate it, because not only because our relationship, but because I know you've had a lot of people that have reported to you. So if I'm somewhere on that list, then that's humbling. I am a sponge for information, right? And I've always been that way. And I've always been disappointed when leaders that haven't recognized that. And you would think that everyone would be eager.
Right.
Sometimes the enthusiasm is like, it's like too much for people, because
they want you to shut it down. Like, no, because what that does is it forces them to do things differently or think differently, or have to find out the answer, or have to find something to stimulate and trigger your energy level. And to a lot of leaders, they just don't have that mechanism, and they want to do exactly, they're a B or C player as a leader who should never have been promoted to a leadership position in the first place.
Mic drop.
That's one of my pet peeves, is when people get promoted to leadership just because they're good at what they did. That doesn't mean they can translate that knowledge to somebody else, or that they can help recreate and develop other people to be great at what they do. And I think that is an organizational disaster when companies do that. And I see it over and over and over again. Sales is one of the most obvious ones.
Oh gosh, yes.
People get promoted to sales manager just because they were a great salesperson. Typically, those salespeople hated that they got promoted to management, because they're not making as much money as they were as an individual contributor. But now they have to rely on other people, where they just want to be out there and doing it. They don't want to have to explain to anybody or talk to anybody. They just want to do it. So it's a pet peeve of mine when companies do that.
Well, how about we make this sort of, why don't we talk about this next topic and then wrap? Because you've opened this door, and you may or may not have the answer. I don't know, but
I doubt I do.
But that's such a great example, and it happens all the time, right? You have these high achievers and their individual roles, and it's not just sales, but a lot of times it's sales, right? Where they do really well, and then they think that they're deserving of this role. You want to reward them for how well they've done, but they may not be a great leader, and you may even know it. What do you do with your high achievers and individual contributor roles when leadership isn't the best fit for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And my team now, we focus on leadership development a lot. My team currently, we train call center folks, which we have a high volume, and we're consistently having to train new leaders, et cetera. And we've been having this conversation of what makes a good leader on this program, but it's sort of universal. And looking at just metrics, like their their customer satisfaction scores or their average call handling time or whatever other numbers or metrics you want to look at. Like when I was, a sales manager, when I've done various things, it's not just about the metrics. You have to look at the soft skills side. But the problem is that's hard to measure.
Right.
It is really hard to measure soft skills. And so utilizing resources and tools like 360 assessments can help identify whether that person is a good skill set. But I also think companies have to recognize and determine and develop what is the profile of the ideal person for that role. What does it look like outside of just metrics? What are the skills? Like, is this a job that constantly changes? So we need to have somebody who knows how to lead through change and ambiguity. Do we need somebody who is an excellent communicator? Because this is one of those teams that just drops off and people forget to tell them what's going on, and then they sort of, explode. Figuring out what are the specific soft skills, not generic stuff like, oh, this person is, a great attention to detail or whatever, but like what really makes that, and then translate to hiring. That is really, there's so many companies out there trying to make money off of that. None of them have it exactly right. Some of them have different pieces and parts of it. I've worked with different companies. I've taken different trainings. I don't know that I have the exact solution either, but the more we refine it, the better it is. And looking at
put you on the spot.
Metrics. Yeah.
So we know that we shouldn't hire these high achievers for these leadership roles if they're not a good fit. What do you do with them? What do you do with these people? They're doing great. They've been killing it. They're making their numbers. They're ready for the next challenge. Like, how do you satisfy these guys? So
I think it's having a really honest, candid conversation. Why do they want leadership? What do they think a leadership role would do for them? Do they think it's, power? Do they think it's a more autonomy? Do they think it's more money or prestige? Or do they just think it's naturally the next step? Kind of like some people think, oh, okay, we've been dating. Okay, the next step is to get engaged. Okay, next step is get married. Okay, next step is to have a baby. Just because that's all the way that's been done, that like, do they have a preconceived notion that, oh, I've been doing this great, I should be rewarded by getting this next step? Having a candid conversation of why do you want this? Why do you think you'd be good at it? Why do you think it would be a good fit for you? And then if you honestly don't think that they're a good fit for it, find something else that's going to trigger their energy without moving them into something that they're not going to be successful. You don't want to set people up to fail. So maybe they can help with some sort of high potential program. Maybe they're not the right person to move into leadership, but maybe they can help identify what new and future leaders could look like that made them successful in their career. Or maybe they can help with a training program and mentor new people in that role. Or, maybe it's even sort of just like cross-functional things. Maybe they can help work with marketing and say, this is how we can start marketing our product or service in a different way. So I think finding them a way to trigger their energy to help give them some recognition and keep them engaged, but having that candid conversation, moving them into leadership, knowing that they're not going to be successful in leadership is not the right fit. Now, if they have potential anywhere in there, I'm a huge fan of maximizing somebody's potential. If there's potential, if there really is a possibility they could be great at it, then keep them on the back burner as bench strength. Work with them on those skills that they might need.
Help them develop those skills.
Exactly. Yeah. And then if at some point they are ready, maybe they need a little more guidance, maybe they need a little more time, but work with them and then maybe get them into that role if it's truly a potential and they are doing it for the right reasons. If they're not, then find some other way to keep them engaged and do something, because moving them into a leadership role is going to not just affect them and their sort of success, but the rest of the organization too.
You're losing a good salesperson and you're hiring a bad leader.
Exactly.
It's like a lose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And way too many companies do it.
Yeah. You are very involved. And I know that leadership within women in leadership is something that's kind of that you hold, closely. Talk about the importance of seeing diversity in leadership positions, just in general, and kind of and how you view it, and some of the things that you're a part of that's kind of moving that ball for down the field, so to speak.
Yeah. Oh, I love sports analogies. That's fantastic.
That wasn't too high.
Sports ball. That was a
Or-
sports ball analogy. I've got it.
all right, good.
So, yes, I am fiercely passionate about mentoring women specifically. And I think it's because I didn't have a whole lot of leaders early in my career that really helped guide me. My first 10 years, I only had male managers and didn't see any females in a leadership role. And so it was something that became very important to me once I started becoming more successful and kind of getting my feet under me when it came to my career. And to me, it's a simplistic formula. Diversity of people equals diversity of thought equals strength of thought. And I know that there's a whole lot that goes in that, but to me, that's the simplicity. And it's important that people understand that, but so many people don't. So many people try to replicate themselves. In fact, there was and I can't remember her name, but she was a professor from a local university who came in and did some training with some of the senior leaders at my company. And one of the things my VP shared with me that she talked about is people, and I've always heard this, people tend to hire people that remind them of themselves, right? So people end up hiring people that look like them, have similar backgrounds, similar cultures. But what she said that I'd never heard before, which I thought was really interesting, is people hire people that remind them of their younger self. So not kind of who they are right now, but their younger self, like their potential and who, like they hire people that remind them of who they once were and kind of who they would want, that they wanted somebody to evolve them. And that just kind of blew my mind. I was like, I can see that happening.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we have so little diversity in organizations at the top level, because people are just rehiring what they looked like when they were younger early in their career. But to me, seeing diversity at a leadership level is at the highest senior level leaders. Like there's a lot of first level leaders that are diverse. I think companies have gotten much better at opening up opportunities to everybody and really seeking to have diversity in candidates and making sure people understand the value and seeking candidates, like sourcing candidates that are diverse. But I think so many organizations, there's like a couple of levels up and then the diversity sort of just stops. And you get to the highest level, maybe the level below that too, and there's just very little diversity. And if there is diversity, it's minimal. There might be one Black leader and one or two women, maybe. Like that's sort of the, and that's not enough. Like it's not enough. The senior leadership at organizations need to represent what our world looks like, what our society looks like, in order to have a true representation that allows organizations to continue growing and evolving. I mean, the financials are there. When all the research is there saying companies that are diverse, they're more profitable.
Yeah.
And so these people are getting in their own way by not promoting and reinforcing diversity at the highest levels, because that's where it truly translates into monetary gain for an organization. If you're thinking about your shareholders,
there's a business case.
There's no reason to do that. Absolutely. Yeah. So I am fiercely protective of that.
You know what it is? It goes back to the whole BNC players and leadership, right? BNC leaders. My first job, this is how naive I was. I had a supervisor who was like, it was like shipping and receiving, and there was like this mess, and he was like complaining about how unorganized everything was. And I said, well, why don't they just reorganize it? And he said, it's easier to just do it poorly than for them to kind of start from scratch and kind of and organize it. Just the amount of time, they just don't want to put forth that amount of effort. And I went, that doesn't make sense. But boy, that have I recognized that a lot since then, right? I mean, it's if we continue to challenge ourselves at every level, right? And if we're the CEO, we need to make sure that the board or that the other C-level leaders are making. If we fall off, we need to make sure that someone's holding us accountable. But that constant evolution, so that we don't get comfortable, so that because most of these people didn't start off being B and C leaders, right? They got comfortable, they had some success, and now they don't want any disruption.
They're coasting. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, tell me what you said. You said diversity. Give
So
me
diversity of people equals diversity of thought equals strength of thought.
diversity of people equals diversity in thought, which
Equals
equals
strength of thought.
strength of thought. That's a great place to end. I love that. I love that. And it's simply put, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yep.
We all have blind spots, and the more diverse of teams that we can put around us, the less blind spots that, the more properly prepared we are, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I have team members that challenge me regularly. Like I know I'm going into a one-on-one and I'm just like, all right, what is she gonna bring today? But it's always good. Like I need that. I don't need
Yeah.
a bunch of people to be like, you're the best boss. No, that's not gonna help me. That's not gonna
Yeah.
help our team. And people that aren't comfortable with that shouldn't be in leadership, but they also have their own issues they need to deal with.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's not just at work, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Well, listen, this has been great. I, think the world of you, and I'm so happy to have you on Baxter's Buzz. You've been, rooting me on and kind of, showing me love as always, and I appreciate you coming on and being a part of the conversation. So thanks again, Jen.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. I remember when Baxter's Buzz was just a blog.
Just a
It's
blog.
just a blog. I remember that.
Wow. I know,
Yep.
right? I haven't blogged in about, yeah, it's been a while. It's been not quite a year, but that's
Yeah.
another piece that I'm gonna get back going. So yeah, it's just the next evolution, right?
It was great to get buzzed with you today, Max.
We're gonna do that one day soon too. But on behalf of Jen, I am Baxter E. Hall. Thank you all for checking this great conversation out. Please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. If you like it, somebody else may like it. Don't be stingy. Pass along the good word. And until next time, peace.